Today in Matt's class, Phil and I are going to share some cool tips, tricks, and techniques for awesome prop design. Welcome back to another day in Matt's classroom. Hanging out with me is the incredible Phil Stone. Phil does a lot of awesome gaming illustration for companies like Wizards of the Coast on games like Dungeons and Dragons. So what we're talking about today is prop design. And no, this is not what is on the back of a motorboat, but this is any kind of, when you've got your world that you're building, this could be any kind of cool weapon or amulet or magical device, or it could be a futuristic briefcase, just any kind of item that is in your world, whether it's a futuristic world or fantasy world. But we're talking about things that are somehow important to the story. It could be a jetpack, rocket booster. So what are some things that you've had to design before?
Jars,
okay. Sometimes it's just a jar. So sometimes it's not as exciting, but...
It is though, if you think about it, because it sets the tone. If you had like somebody in like medieval times and you're throwing up some kind of avant-garde glasswork, it just doesn't fit. So you got to make this chunkier, like some kind of artisan in a hut made this thing. So it lends credibility to the storyline.
When you're designing a lot of things for role-playing games, there's obviously a lot of research that goes into it. Is there kind of a brain space that you have to be in? Because some people would think, like, if you have to design, let's say, some stained glass windows that are in the background of this castle or something like that, there might be some artists that are just like, I gotta draw stained glass, and man, I gotta look this up and I gotta research this. Is there a mindset that you get in where you not just plug through, but is there a way that you use positivity, and when you get to something like that, you're like, instead of it being like, oh man, stained glass, I gotta draw the little pieces? Or do you approach it like, okay, stained glass, now maybe I don't normally draw stained glass, but instead of looking at it that way, are you like, all right, so I'm gonna draw some awesome stained glass and it is just gonna look beautiful. It's really gonna make this illustration pop out. Is there like a mindset? Is there a way that you kind of trick yourself into really enjoying that kind of just crazy research that you put into something?
My favorite thing is, could I actually use this? And can I challenge myself to make something functional? I actually did have to do stained glass a couple of years ago. The reference piece that they gave me was from a cathedral in France, with a pipe organ in front of it. So now you got stained glass and a pipe organ, and not only that, but the stained glass has to be manipulated to the point where it looked like two arms were coming out at the camera, at the viewer. That was fantastic. It was tedious, but to sit there and go through every pipe on that pipe organ, and look at it through the lens of, would this actually work in real life? I don't know, I love it.
Awesome.
I just want to make something you can actually use.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to see what you do today. We are going to design some cool props that are in our world. What are you thinking? Do you know what you're thinking for a prop? Are you thinking like a weapon? Or are you thinking like an everyday item that exists in your world?
I was thinking a scepter.
A scepter, okay. From like a fantasy world, something that's like a medieval
I want something
scepter?
Almost androgynous, where it could be both.
Ooh, so you don't even know.
No.
All right.
It's an artifact.
Ooh.
And you don't know the time period.
I like that. It's kind of what Zelda is, you know? Is that in the future or is that in the past? It's just another time, another place.
You're in a galaxy far, far away.
Okay, yeah, sure. Why not? I don't know what I'm doing yet, but let's hop to it. So I want to draw a cool book of like spells or something like that. So I'm going to start lightly and just kind of map out my book. And I want to do something where maybe there's a little bit of a 3D element. Maybe this will help as things are rounded. I need to make anything I draw, any kind of text or any kind of illustrations on the page, need to be somewhat rounded. Build the shape of the book a little bit more here. This giant tome. I heard that. Jeez. What'd you have for breakfast? You remind me a lot of myself, Phil. Like you're like a 12-year-old wrapped in a grown man's body. I have a tattoo on my shoulder that says Forever 12.
I saw that.
You really?
Yep. You know, Picasso once said that the child is the true artist, and the trick is how to remain a child once one grows up. I firmly believe that, and it's also funny, I feel like all the things that I was really into when I was 12, like, I'm still into exactly that. Like, a lot of the music that I loved at that age, and things like role-playing games. Like, oh my gosh, like, if you would have told me then that I would be working on things like Star Wars or role-playing games, comic books, like, what?
Growing old is mandatory, growing up is optional.
I'm working on a scepter.
I mean, you could approach it, you just put it straight up and down and be like, there's your scepter, but
We're gonna put this scepter in sort of an environment. It's kind of laying down, but we're gonna have the perspective go back. It's sitting on something. So we're gonna put some dimension to it because just having a stick as a scepter doesn't exactly make you a very powerful person. The ground part we're gonna treat as like a fabric. So any type of part that's coming out is gonna seep into that fabric. So we're gonna have this little windy bits kind of coil around it. A little handle, because this would be the top of the scepter. And this is where you grab it, and then it would continue on just a little bit back here. Goes around this way. So I want to keep a little highlight down there just to show off that shape a little bit, so it doesn't look like it's totally dug into whatever it's laying on. But then what if,
on top of these little shapes,
it has some little knobby bits? So now we're working with a civilization that's more advanced, but you don't know which period it's from. We're just gonna keep going with this little motif here.
Now it's time to just kind of put in my details, and I'm just kind of, now that I'm comfortable with how this is looking, I'm gonna go more confident with these darker lines to really make this book stand out. I want to have some kind of crazy spells and diagrams, so maybe there's some kind of skull here. Now, because this book is tipping back, I'm going to have a little bit of foreshortening where the skull is going to be kind of rounded, but also it's going to be smaller up here as objects recede, and then as the skull is getting closer to us on the page, it's going to be getting a little bit larger, so I have to kind of plan for that.
We got it sitting on this cloth-like thing.
all your details will be up on top here with the lights hitting it straight down like that, and then everything else is just kind of blocked in.
What if we put filigree?
So as I continue to add stuff on the pages, again, the challenge is two things. For one, this book is tipping back, so I need everything to have perspective and foreshortening, where things that are tipping back further away are a little bit smaller, things that are coming out towards us are a little bit larger. On top of that, these pages are bending, so I have to make it look like any words, any diagrams, any drawings that I have in this, they're all kind of rounding as the pages are kind of not completely flat, but just, you know, they have a little bit of a lift to them, curving over like so. I feel like it needs just a little more weight.
Oh, dang.
It's kind of like a Necronomicon kind of thing. It's my book of spells. The challenge for me was to really make it look like it's kind of wrapped around.
I was just going to say
the
that,
page.
like, even the candle really shows that off, because a lot of times someone will just
Just put the, you know, whatever on there, and it just looks, it flattens everything out. But this is like beautiful, fantastic.
You know what, I probably should have rounded it even more now that I'm looking at it. I probably should have had it just up even a little more. That helps a little maybe. Just want to grab it and see what's
right,
on the next
exactly.
page.
That's what you want. It's just like, can you use it?
Oh, yes! That is so cool. I love all of the little gems on it and stuff. A lot of times when people draw a prop, they've just got it by itself.
Right.
This is probably on velvet or some kind of, you know, and it's like the fact that you actually have it on some kind of velvety surface, like that adds so much. Like this isn't something random in a cave, but this is like a piece of royalty or something like that. And I think that just adds so much. Phil, that was great. Really cool.
Thank you.
So I love, props are so neat. There's so many cool things you can do with not just weapons. That's usually the quick go-to, like when you're thinking of props, like of course, what do people fight with, kind of thing. But I just love world building and designing. What do people drink out of? Do they have a special backpack that has like cool different pouches for putting different things? And it's just so cool to kind of think about all of that stuff and really do your research just to create a new world. It's all about the props and the gadgets and what are the things that make this world what it is.
Absolutely.
I can't wait to see what kind of props you guys come up with your world. Give us a like, subscribe, notification bell. We want some comments. Say hello, say it, don't spray it. And then also you should follow both Phil and I on Instagram and all of the other social media. I'll have that information down below. Let's do some props.